Okay, so we are live. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the MAET Bridge webinar series. My name is Rohit Mehta, and I'm a doctoral student in the Education Psychology and Educational Technology program at Michigan State University. And it is my distinct pleasure to be hosting today's episode. The Bridge is a production of the Masters in Education Technology program at Michigan State University, and through this program, we aim to provide high quality and free professional development for educators on issues of pressing importance in education technology. We have a very interesting panel of guests joining us today. Here to talk about technology integration in mathematics classroom, we have with us Dr. Sam Arden, who is an assistant professor of math education at the University of Missouri. And accompanying him, we have two of our MAET alumni. First, Ryan Brown, who has taught 11 years in Virginia and overseas, and is currently the head of the middle school math department at the Anglo-American School of Moscow, Russia. A fun fact about Sam and Ryan that we learned today, that they are both originally from Upper Michigan. Apparently, UP is a source of tech and math geniuses. Our third guest, who's also an MIT alumni, Elizabeth Kupecki, who teaches math at Academy of Aerospace and Engineering at Greater Hartford Academy of Math and Science in Connecticut, unfortunately is running late because her flight got delayed. Let's hope that she makes it. Better late than never. I should also note that my colleague, Michelle Hagerman, who has hosted many of the previous episodes of the MAT Bridge, is here as well, and she'll be monitoring the back channel conversations and bringing insight from our viewers to the live conversation. If you're joining us for the first time, you can follow the live stream at bridge.educ.msu.edu. There, you will find an open Etherpad where you can contribute to the conversation. You can also choose to tweet during the live stream. Just add hashtag MAETBridge to your tweets. Okay, so let's get started. We'll begin with each of our guests introducing themselves and telling us more about their work pertaining to the technology integration to support learning in mathematics classrooms. For the sake of an order, let's start with Sam and followed by Ryan. So the floor is yours, Sam.
Sure, yeah, I'm Sam, and my research actually focuses on middle and high school mathematics students' engagement in mathematical practices, so I'm really interested in seeing how students become actively involved in reasoning and improving, in problem solving, and in attending to precision, and those kind of mathematical ways of thinking and interacting. But I've found myself more and more getting interested in technology because technology is becoming a very important sort of mediating factor in students' engagement. So I've become very interested in things like iPads and tablets because those become an important player in the classroom, and it becomes a tool through which students can engage in problem solving or reasoning or attending to precision. And I've been interested in apps like the PhotoMath app. I've been interested in flipped classrooms, and for me, I'm interested in flipped classrooms because it's a potential way to change the nature of students' experiences in mathematics classrooms, but it's not necessarily a change. It could just be a kind of a reversal of where you do the work without changing much. So I've found myself becoming interested in those areas, and I've also been working with pre-service teachers on one-to-one implementation of tablets. So I've been gaining experience on really having a lot of tablets in the classroom as well.
Thank you. Ryan, if you can take the floor.
Sure. This is my fourth year in Moscow. Kids are kids no matter where they are. You have those that excel in math, those that don't do very well in math. I have many students that use Khan Academy to help themselves, fill in those holes or gaps. We try not using that because we want them to know the mathematics behind it. So we're using Dan Meyer's 3-acts. There's also 100 questions that's very similar with that philosophy, along with many apps that I use within the classroom, just to keep the kids engaged, either just for skills or working on the skills behind those mathematics. The mathematics behind what's going on with those algorithms.
Right. Thank you, Ryan, for introducing yourself and what you do. And we'll move on to Liz, but we know that you just joined in, so I'd help you catch up. Um,
Okay.
we were just starting, and we were just introducing each other. And
Okay.
as you saw, that Sam was telling us about what he does in his work and about his research, and Ryan was telling us what kind of technology they're integrating in their classrooms. And we did introduce you briefly. We told you where you work, but if you would like, please go ahead and talk about where you're from, what you're doing right now, and how are you integrating technology in your work and your classroom.
So I currently teach in Hartford, Connecticut. Hopefully you could all hear me fine. Um,
I hear you perfectly.
okay, awesome. And I teach at a math and science academy. So our students typically have a one-to-one laptop system. So we are able to use, we use Schoology very frequently. So we typically use that as a means of communication. And I use some of the embedded assessments in Schoology, like the discussions and quizzes, to help students engage, not only in the classroom, but also outside of the classroom.
Mm-hmm.
Prior to teaching in Hartford, I taught a resource Algebra 1 in Michigan, in Muskegon. In that class, because it was students who had special needs, we used a lot of actually in that program. So I gave students a lot more freedom as far as their representations. So I had some students, for example, that would do scatter plots using Minecraft and things like that. So that was kind of my experience with technology in that classroom. Was I used it as I would give students a list of tools and basically said, choose whichever of these work for you after I'd introduced them when they needed to represent something mathematically. And like Ryan said, we also did a lot of the Dan Brown, or Dan Myers, pardon me, 3-act math tasks.
I think you could do some Dan Brown code breaking too.
Yeah, totally. Good.
Thank you so much for jumping in, Liz. And I know that you are kind of catching your breath, so I reiterate what I was just telling Sam and Ryan before you join, that feel free to jump in if you find something interesting in
Okay.
the conversations, and if Sam and Ryan are talking about something that you could contribute to, please feel to jump in. So thank you for your introductions, guys. An interesting question that pops up from what Sam was just talking about. Sam, a question to you. What is the difference between using new technology, such as tablets, as a replacement versus as an innovation?
So yeah, this has been, for me, a valuable way to think about the way that I try to use technology. So first of all, progress moves forward, and so there is this replacement that naturally happens, and replacement is just bringing in a new technology to do something that basically you could already do, or to do it in the same way that you could do before. So like if you had a chalkboard, you can replace that with a whiteboard and you can use it in basically the same way, and then you could replace that with a smartboard if you're using the smartboard just to literally write things on the smartboard in the same way that you could with a whiteboard. Or there's, like if you have students reading from a textbook, you could replace that with a digital textbook, but you're still using it in the same way of having students look at the sections or do problems from that. And so it's kind of not a very exciting use of technology, but it's not necessarily bad either, because if you can have one tablet with all of your textbooks instead of carrying all of them around, that's actually a pretty useful replacement. Or maybe the smartboard is cleaner than having all of the ink and chalk dust and stuff from previous ones. So it's not that replacement is bad, it's just that it's different than innovation. And so for me, when I'm trying to use technology, I try to think about, am I really innovating, and am I using it to do something new and interesting and help the students get new opportunities to learn that they didn't have without the technology. So innovation would be using a piece of technology in a way that it allows you to do something that you couldn't do without it. So like with the smartboard, if you draw up a graph or you draw a mathematical object and then you grab it and copy it and paste it a bunch of times, or you grab it and rotate it around and then stretch it out and use the actual dynamic features of the smartboard, that's now an innovation, because good luck trying to do that with a whiteboard. And for me then, when I think about, okay, I'm using the new features, but am I doing it in a way that's somehow helping me meet a learning goal or helping me give students opportunities to learn important things? So that's what I try to do, and so for me with using tablets a lot this year, one-to-one tablets, some of it I'm just using as replacement.
Mm-hmm.
Like, okay, we're going to do this reading or we're going to have these problems on the tablet PDF instead of, handing out paper. That's a replacement. But then I also tried to do things that were innovative, tried to use the tablet to give me some kind of new leverage for student learning.
Right. That's very interesting. And speaking of replacement and innovation, it kind of makes me think of what Ryan was just talking about. He was talking about how they use Khan Academy videos, but they try not to focus too much on them. So Ryan, my question to you is there something out there better than Khan Academy videos? And how can a math teacher at any level use videos or real-life examples for many entry points?
Sure. With Dan Meyer's work, he's pulling the math apart so the kids can come in any avenue. They can, if they're very low in math or they're very high, they can come in at any level and still succeed in the question. So, all students learn differently. It's very much personalizing their learning of what get them where they're at and try to get everyone where they need to be. So there's an example that I just used this past week in class where using a clip from Futurama where a little backstory of the series, the guy is frozen for 1,000 years and wakes up. So he had a bank account with 93 cents in it. After 1,000 years, how much money does he have in that account? So it's set up that way where, the kids are engaged of, the problem is set. They can then, help each other out. Well, I know this aspect and put all their information together to get to the final product without asking them right away, what is the answer, but having them go through the process of what you already know and go through that.
Right.
And just to touch base on what Sam was saying earlier with the smartboard in the classroom, if teachers can get their kids to touch that board every day, learning and growing in mathematics will grow exponentially.
Right. So,
Bless you.
Got a problem.
we have here, but I'm guessing we are still. Sam was just mentioning, there was an interesting conversation going on. He mentioned the difference between replacement versus innovation. Does that resonate in your own work in some ways?
Pardon, I don't know if you were speaking to me. I'm not getting sound.
Oh,
Here.
okay.
You have to restart.
No, I can use my microphone.
Okay.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can.
Hello?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. So my question to you was, we were just talking about what Sam was mentioning, the difference between replacement versus innovation. And we were wondering if that kind of resonates in your own work in some way. Do you feel the same thing that technology has been, like such as tablets, have been used as a replacement device, but now there are some work in innovation as well?
I definitely agree, and I agree with a lot of what Sam was saying as far as replacement has value to giving students tools such as access to Khan Academy lectures when they're outside of class. However, there's a lot of things. I particularly like online applets. I know FET through the University of Colorado has a lot of fantastic interactive applets, which is something that is very different than what we could do in the math classroom before. It was unless a lot of times we had fancy lab equipment or the animations, really, there would have been no ways to do that without students having access to computers.
Right.
So I think that those type of things really are an innovation. And as Ryan is saying, I think it gives students more access points. So I know when I've used those applets in the past, the observations students make tend to be extremely varied. So I definitely think there is movement towards innovation. I think in some cases it depends on the culture of the school and the culture of the math department in particular.
Right. So a follow-up question. How does, because this kind of reminds me of UDL, how does technology help in the math classroom to incorporate this universal design and learning? Specifically, how does technology allow for students to represent their learning in a variety of ways?
Can I start that one?
Sure.
Okay. Oh, okay. Sorry. Well, just looking at the innovation, just using a standard document camera where you can take an image of one student's work and have multiple students, using a chirp, the chirp at, and sending it to all the students, and then they can, either correct that student's work or, point out certain things and then resend it, and you can share that either in small groups or to a large class.
Right. So, so I'd like to go back to Sam on that. So Sam, based on what we're just talking about and the question that I asked, that how does technology allow for students to represent their learning in a variety of ways? Do you have something to add to that?
Yeah, I think that's one place where there really can be innovation and not just replacement. So speaking from my experience with tablets, I think it's really helpful to have students represent their thinking in a variety of ways so that you don't just have one fragile way to think about a mathematics problem or a mathematics piece of knowledge, but you're really flexible in seeing it from different angles. And so one thing, is to kind of try to put some kind of visual to it or put some kind of symbols to it to represent that idea. But to me, it's kind of one thing to just sketch that down on a piece of paper or sketch that up in front of a class. But it's another thing, to me, that's where the innovation can come in from technology, is if you can share that in new ways. Like you can push it out to your classmates and have them actually then interact with your idea, or a student can have their peers interact with their mathematical idea. The other way that I think there can be innovation is, like Liz was mentioning, with simulations and some of the dynamic changes and things that you can do can just allow for the representation to be, to me, more of a source of learning than some of the stuff that you could have done before, prior to like the interactive apps or the simulations, or having these tablets where you can really drag things around, stretch them, and move them. So I think it, first of all, can make it shareable in a new way, but it can also, I think, make it tangible and kind of flexible in a new way. And both of those, I think, can be innovations to actually help change the students' experiences with the mathematical ideas.
Right. Going back to Liz, because Sam just mentioned something that you said earlier. Do you want to add something? Because I have another question for you.
I think you hit the nail on that. I mean, my personal take on the representation is I use technology when I feel it's appropriate, but I still give students the pencil and paper option. I find a lot of students are still really comfortable with that. But like Ryan said, I think using the document camera allows the integration both